Hey folks, Phil the Bee Man. We're feeding and sampling today, and I'll show you some results first and then show you a process after. Sorry it's not super great, but so here we have, let's start here. I counted out 100 bees here. This looks like probably, like I'm estimating I use about a 500 bee sample here. I don't count every bee, but that's what 100 bees looks like. So this is at least 4 times that. This is a sample from the last yard, and I hope we can see it. All those little dots underneath. Dave, can you see that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all mites. So we're going to count them all. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So to get percentage out of from 500, so that's like 3.5%, I think. Double it and then divide by 10. So that's not good. So we got some thinking to do. I've checked some sites last few days, seeing anywhere from, I haven't had any clean tests at all. I've seen like 1 mite in 500, and I've seen numbers getting up towards 4%. Part of it, I think, is that the brood is hatching off a little early. I'm seeing not a ton of brood in some hives, and I'm seeing, but I'm also, it's been a long summer. Like we got the strips in very early this spring, so they really haven't been treated for anything since like mid-May. Often that Apivar treatment cycles through into June. So anyway, I need a clear picture as to what my real mite situation is, so I know what my preferred treatment would be. If it's just 1 or 2% right now, I'd be happy to just clean that up with an oxalic, 2 or 3 rounds of oxalic. I'm thinking it's worse than that, and might have to go to a formic or maybe even a strip, but I used Apivar in the spring. I really hate to use anything back to back. So anyway, we're going to sample here. I'll show you how I sample, and we'll see what this site says. So I like to take 100 bees out of 5 hives rather than 500 from one. And I think it's important to go right into the brood. Sometimes there's bees hanging on the front or under the lid or something, and I've found that those results tend to be pretty inconsistent. You need to be pulling your sample right from the brood chamber, preferably from a frame that has brood in it. So that would be beauty. Just doing a quick scan for queens. Don't see one. So then I'm going to take my jar, and it seems counterintuitive to slide it down when you want bees to go up into it, but watch, and maybe come in real close here, Dave. You'll see how I slide this down and the bees fall into the jar. And that's probably 100 bees, and so we'll take, that's enough from this hive. While we're here, let's do a quick brood count. So you can see how this is hatching out, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of eggs coming back in. So this hive is in kind of wind down mode. Bless you. 1, 2, 3. Lots of young larvae there, so they haven't completely shut down. 4, 5 frames of brood, 6 eggs and larvae there. And on the inside wall, just honey and pollen. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is there any on this one? Yes, 7. 7 frames of brood. I'm okay with that. Okay, and we want this to be kind of a random sample, so we'll just cruise along, pick another hive. I don't think this hive is as strong as the last one. And it'd be pretty easy to bias your sample either by picking, all hives that are in trouble or all hives that are super strong. I know I hate to take bees away from a hive, so I like to, oh, that's a strong one, it can spare a few. And you could easily give yourself false information if you wanted to. So there's 1, 2, 3. This hive is pretty light, not a lot of honey here. I hate to say it, but the last site we found a completely starved out hive. Bees could hardly fit in it, but no food at all, so a little overdue. Oh, I'm sorry, I just got stung in the eye. There's the stinger. Oh, yeah, sometimes those really smart. It's a queen from 2019. So maybe she's slowing down a bit. Okay, we need a sample here. This one hasn't completely devoured its pollen patty yet. Probably not a warning sign, but interesting nonetheless. Not much left. And this is where maybe you kind of regret running 10 frames in your brood chambers if you have a hard time digging them out. Lots more feed left in this one. Probably a smaller hive. Not much brood there. So I think at least part of my higher mite levels might just be the higher sort of exposed mites because of the reduced amount of brood some of these hives have. Well, there's our queen. So we're going to put her down here where it's safe. And we'll take our sample off of that frame. There's lots of brood here. Okay, probably one more hive will make 500 bees. Okay. Let's try this one. I'd say this hive has got trouble. Lots of pollen patty left. Now when you find a hive that's dropping out on you, what do you do in terms of your sampling? This one, the queen has failed almost for sure. So with no brood at all, if it has mites, it's going to show as an elevated level. I think we should probably, let's leave that open, and we'll shake it separately after to see how it compares. I'd be afraid of screwing up my results. Try a different one. I go on to say that probably not much wrong with this hive. Okay, so there's brood on that frame. 4, 5, 6, 7 frames of brood. Right to the middle. That's way more than 500 bees now. I guess I should put my mask up because these bees are telling me, ouch, telling me that it's not summer anymore. Okay, we'll go back to the truck. Now, you shake. This is the fluid, by the way, is windshield washer antifreeze from my local co-op. rated for -40°C. Generally speaking, the lower the temperature, the higher the alcohol content. You can buy summer stuff that has only very minor antifreeze, if any. Of course, the closer you live to Canada, probably the higher the alcohol content, because we have colder winters. And you want to give us a pretty vigorous shaking. You want to be probably, starting to dislodge wings and legs, because the alcohol has killed both the bees and the mites, but those mites are still bit into those bees' bodies. You want to have a pretty vigorous shake, and then you let the fluid drain down. A little bit of agitation as you go to make sure that anything trapped in there has a chance to come down, and then you have a look. And I see mite. I don't think that's a mite. So not tons. And of course, these jars you drag around in the truck and they get dirty and they're harder and harder to look through. What do you see, Dave? One, two.
I think there are two here.
Oh, there's more. They're taking a while to settle. There's one real clear one there. Two, lots of little debris. I think there's a third one swimming around there. It doesn't want to come to the bottom. But if it's 2 or 3 on 500, that's less, well under 1%. This is not nearly as worrying as that 4.5% of the last site. Both yards have a pretty similar history within the operation, so that's a bit interesting. All right, so that's I'm going to mull on that while we're feeding these hives. Dave reminded me to come back to this hive, so thanks, Dave. And I'm going to grab a bunch of bees off of this one, and we'll see what the mites are like in this hive that's clearly on the way out. Probably queen failure. We'll get a bunch of drones in here too. They're even more likely to carry mites. Mites love to get on the drones because drones slip in and out of different hives all the time. That's their vector for spreading. Okay. If you're impatient, you probably want to, 60 steamboats, or try to remember how to spell Mississippi or Manitoba. Whatever it takes to make sure that you've really given this a good hard minute. Now we left the 3, we're using the same fluid. So there was 3 mites in here to start with before. So we're counting n minus 3 here. I'm not seeing a ton. So I don't even see the ones that we left in there. Starting to settle now. I usually take the sample and leave it to the next site to give them lots of time to settle out. I'll flip it over and try again. Okay, I see at least one. It's actually probably a good system to make sure that you have at least one mite in there. Because if you can't see it, then you know you're doing something wrong. I'm clearly trapping. I see one. That's a glob of, oh, there's one there. Yeah, it's a clear one. Anyway, I don't think we've picked up, excuse me. We haven't picked up a ton more mites, that's for sure. We're barely finding the ones we knew were in there already. So, sampling from that broodless hive would have screwed up my results. Not in the way I was expecting. I was expecting it to have lots of mites. In fact, it's fewer mites. Those mites have drifted off to other colonies with brood in them. So that I would have had a lower number if I'd included that hive in the original sample. So that's a lesson for today, I guess. All right, so don't sample from broodless hives. Just for anyone who hasn't been following at home, I use recycled pails for my feeding. And rather than getting a screened lid or anything, I just use a sharpened old screwdriver to punch the holes, flip that over the hive. You can see the syrup ooze out of there, but it won't all run out because eventually, as the syrup leaks out, it'll create a atmospheric pressure inside the pail. It's less than outside, and that'll provide some back pressure, and that with the surface tension of the thick syrup, the bees will have to continually suck at it. And that's a very effective way, very cheap and effective way to feed your hives. And so most of these pails have been scrounged up from bakeries or restaurants. My parents, bless their hearts, are super good at scrounging these pails up. Thank you much. And we get quite a few years out of them, so it works out really well. All right, time to get to work. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good day.